It's been a while since I've done tight end and quarterback rankings, and this feels kind of like the perfect time to get back into it because week 8, tons of injuries and bye weeks as well. So you don't have to like these rankings, of course, but I'm going to walk you through how I see each ranking for each position. We're going through top 15 tight ends, top 15 quarterbacks. I'm doing everything I can to get us ready for week 8, so please go down there, drop a like on the video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. Now, I want to start out with the tight end rankings first, and I've got Tyler Warren at 1 and Jake Ferguson at 2 to round out a very exclusive tier. So the way I see Tyler Warren right now, right, is that it's kind of like Michael Pittman in a sense in Indianapolis, where he has been so consistent with all of his work. Tyler Warren hasn't gotten tons of games with more than like 6 or 7 targets. He's mostly been averaging 5 targets per game, but he has been so efficient on all of his work. 33 catches out of the 45 targets he's had this year. That's a really great number. And I just feel like in this matchup versus Tennessee, there's not enough there with the matchup to make me feel like it's not a comfortable play. And I think comfortability is a big thing at tight end position, and I've got Tyler Warren at 1 because he feels pretty bust-proof already. And then Jake Ferguson at Denver. I actually think this could be a good game for Jake Ferguson. And the reason is because with CeeDee Lamb, this is a guy who I've said all week is going to get blanketed by Pat Surtain. And it came to my attention last night that I'm probably one of the only fantasy YouTubers who talks about matchups with defenders in particular. And I think a lot of that because these guys don't really watch football. They just regurgitate numbers. But when you look at Pat Surtain, this is the best cover corner in the league, and he'll be blanketing CeeDee Lamb in this game. I think it does open up opportunities for Ferguson. And I will be honest with you, I kind of expected a downturn from Ferguson last week. Once CeeDee Lamb came back into the fold, he still had 7 targets in that game versus Washington. Now, they were not down the field, and I think that could be a problem for Ferguson, but if he continues to see red zone involvement, which he has been, and this week CeeDee gets blanketed, forcing more throws to Ferguson, I think it could be a really good week. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got George Kittle at number 3 and Tucker Kraft at number 4. So when I look at this tier, right, I think that George Kittle is obviously a guy that most people are not comfortable with playing. And I've seen a lot of polls on FSRoundup.com relating to George Kittle because a lot of people are like, should I play a Rondé Gadsden over him? Listen, I understand where you guys are coming from with a Rondé Gadsden, who we'll go over here in a little bit, but I'm definitely playing Kittle over a Rondé Gadsden. It's at Houston. They've got very few weapons, and that was the first game in his entire history without a catch. I mean, he did nothing in that game, obviously, blanked, and that was the first time in history he's ever done that. I'm going to bank on that not happening again, and I do think he will have an explosion game because he actually said it before the game himself, that he's going to be I think stumbling around he basically said I'm out of shape, but I'm going to be aggressively out of shape. So I think this week he gets back at it and has a good fantasy day. Tucker Kraft at 4 at the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've said it a couple times this week. I think this could be one of those matchups that's sneaky high scoring. I think that Rodgers is going to get up to play versus the Green Bay Packers because if he wins, he'll have beaten every single team in the NFL at least once. I think he'll get up to play, forcing the Packers to continue to throw the ball. And Kraft is sort of like this Tyler Warren figure where he doesn't always see a ton of targets, but he always has a good stable baseline of 4 to 5 targets on a per game basis. So in this type of matchup, I want a guy like Tucker Kraft. And I've also got Dalton Kincaid at 5 to round out this tier. And if he plays, he's going to Carolina. Now, obviously, we need to know the extent of the injury, and it's been kind of tough. They just coming off a bye week, and he's still limited in practice with an oblique injury. So he may play this game, he may not. I'm ranking him, obviously, as if he does play, and I think the one thing that needs to be remembered about Dalton Kincaid's season so far is he's clearly been the best and most consistent option for Josh Allen. He's averaging 13.3 fantasy points per game in a full PPR format and has caught 20 of his 24 targets in 5 games. That's basically 5 targets per game. Basically right in line with Tucker Kraft, with Tyler Warren. So I do think that Dalton Kincaid is in really good position to have another good week against Carolina if he goes, because he's just super important to the offense. Dropping down to our next tier, we've got Mark Andrews at 6 and Dallas Goedert at 7. Now, I want to say something about this tier in particular right here. When I look at this tier, I'm going based off of volume and big play upside. And I think that Mark Andrews, I might be a little overzealous on, But with the return of Lamar Jackson, I want in on these tight end options in Baltimore. Isaiah Likely, if you go to fsroundup.com right now and see my full top 250 rankings, you'll see that Isaiah Likely not that far down. Like he's in good position, I think, this week. But obviously I prefer Andrews because he's been more of a red zone threat over the past 2 years with Lamar. And he already has had a big game and he has the potential to do it. So versus Chicago in what could be a shootout game as well, I'll take Mark Andrews at 6. And again, maybe overzealous, let me know in the comments below and post a poll about it on FS Roundup. Dallas Goedert at 7 versus the New York Giants. I get it, last week was not good, and he's also dealing with injury as well. So we may not even get Dallas Goedert in this game. Last week he had 3 targets though, which was kind of out of the norm. If you look at the majority of his season, it's been 11 targets in week 6. In week 5 he had 7 targets. In week 4 he had 4. But in week 3 he also had 2. So it's like he kind of has been all over the map. But what has been good with Dallas Goedert is his red zone involvement. That little pitch thing that him and Jalen Hurts do at the red zone, that's pretty consistent. So I do think that someone like Dallas Goedert against the Giants in a rebound game is someone I can feel like I could count on. And then Oronde Gadsden lands at 8. I said this last night on a live stream. I think the hype has gone a little too far. Now, I will say this. I do bump up players in Thursday night games because defenses have been bad on Thursday nights this year. It's a short week. It makes sense. Minnesota's defense, though, that's one of the better defenses in the league. And Oronde Gadsden, like outside of the last 2 weeks, has been pretty irrelevant. Now, I get it. He's a rookie, so maybe they were just bringing him on slow, but they still do use Will Dissly on occasion, Tyler Conklin on occasion, Tanner Fisk on occasion. Like, they use a bunch of different guys in that offense, so I don't view him as confidently and as gung-ho as the rest of the community does right now, I think, but I do think that he definitely has upside potential, and that's why he's in a largely upside-based tier. But I will say this, I've seen plenty of polls about Oronde Gadsden on fsroundup.com. And this is what you need to utilize moving forward on fsroundup.com. When you have a start-sit decision, you need to post that poll. It's free entirely to do that on our site, and you can vote on other people's start-sit decisions for free as well. So I'm going to start an Oronde Gadsden poll right now by typing in his name, going to chat, then going to start a poll for week 8, and I'm going to type in Dallas Goedert, for example, and go vote on this poll. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know what you would do in this situation, and vote on other people's polls as well. But if you just want to see where everyone ranks in my top 50, make sure to get the premium subscription, which dropped from $8.88 a month to $6 per month just earlier this week. So you're getting elite features like my top 250 rankings on a weekly basis, our automatic waiver wire tool, our comparison features, our team plugin features, all of that for $6 a month. That's helping you win your league this year, and you're getting it for $6 a month now. Now, dropping down to our next tier, Dalton Schultz is at 9, and Cade Otton is at 10. And with Dalton Schultz, there's just the inevitability that he's going to see more work without Nico Collins in all likelihood this week. Now, he himself is injured. He's got 2 different injuries, so we'll see if he plays. He was limited to practice on Wednesday. We'll see what the report is today and tomorrow. But I do think it's inevitable that he continues to see more work without Nico Collins. They just don't have enough good receivers in that offense. Cade Otton at New Orleans, in a similar position. They're losing guys like crazy. Mike Evans obviously out for the rest of the year probably, and Chris Godwin out, and Emeka Egbuka still hampered with injury. So I do think Otton is still going to have some pretty good performances, and New Orleans is a good matchup. Kyle Pitts is at 11, and Evan Ingram is at 12. Kyle Pitts versus Miami, the matchup is good. It's in a dome. I do think Pitts has been hot and cold this year, but the involvement in the offense has actually remained pretty steady. And that's why I think he's actually got a pretty stable floor this year. And it's kind of a week-to-week thing on if he gets in the end zone and really gives you a big game. I think this could be one of those games. Evan Ingram versus Dallas. I want in on that matchup. That's the bottom line. Bo Nix is going to be highly ranked in the quarterback rankings, and I think that Evan Ingram, as a result of that, is got to be highly ranked. Because if you actually look at Evan Ingram's targets this year, they've been pretty awesome. Like, he's been really involved. He just isn't much of a yards after catch guy, so it's got to be something close to the end zone for him to even be a threat to get a touchdown. Colston Loveland at 13 and TJ Hawkinson at 14. Those 2 guys round out this tier. here. Loveland is obviously going to be in a good position if Cole Kmet does not play. He was limited in practice on Wednesday. It's a back issue, though, and Ben Johnson said he's either day-to-day or week-to-week. Well, there's a big difference between the two, but I'm going to project that Cole Kmet does not play and Loveland takes over, and in the match versus Baltimore, it's very good. TJ Hawkinson, the one thing I will say about him is I did not like him at all in the offseason. I did not tell people to draft him. I said avoid him. But I will say this, with Carson Wentz, he has actually been getting pretty consistent targets. 9 targets last week, what should have been a touchdown arguably as well, taken away from him. And the previous week in week 5, before their bye week, he had 6 targets in that game as well. So he's been a consistent target for Carson Wentz. And I do think the opportunity tonight could present itself in a good way. Dropping down to our last 2 guys, I've got the 2 Cleveland tight ends, and that's only because I've covered it a lot this year. They split work. One of them has a good week sometimes, the other one doesn't, and then a lot of times, more often than not, they both get 6 to 7 targets. So if they're both playing in this game, and that's still in question because Njoku may miss still, but I kind of think he's going to come back, and it's against New England. The matchup, in theory, is not the worst because they're going to be playing from behind and playing catch-up. So I like the opportunity, but I don't have either of these guys as a clear top dog in this offense because Dillon Gabriel wants to throw to both of them. Now let's move over to our quarterbacks here. And tier 1 for the quarterbacks is 4 guys. I really like the matchups and the upside of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Drake May, and Bo Nix. With Josh Allen at Carolina coming off the bye week, I said this on the running back rankings. I kind of feel like the bye week should have served as a soul-searching time for the Buffalo Bills. They should have been out there just on an ayahuasca trip trying to find out who they are as a team because the answer is very simple. Utilize James Cook and Josh Allen does the rest, right? And that's kind of what they got away from the last 2 weeks that they lost. Now versus Carolina on the road after the bye week, I think is a good position to get them back on track. And Josh Allen's rushing upside is too much to overlook. Mahomes has been great. Listen, this guy has been fantastic in fantasy this year. Nobody's really acknowledging it because there's so much fatigue around Patrick Mahomes because when you've been great for as long as he has, people get a little bored with you. But he's playing Washington. That defense is beatable. They've got no Jaden Daniels. But the good thing is that they can't run the ball. So Mahomes is forced to either throw a bunch of touchdowns to get in a big lead or run it himself. And that's the big separating factor is Mahomes has run a lot more than usual this year. So he's easy at quarterback number 2 with the potential of being the QB1. Drake May in this tier, I feel really comfortable doing it only because of the fact that, again, they struggle to run the ball too. And if you look at the previous weeks, the last week when Ramondre had almost 100 yards on the ground, well, he was playing a bad defense against the run. This week against Cleveland, that's one of the best defenses against the run. So I think in order for them to build a lead, he's going to have to throw for touchdowns. And May can still move as well. So I think Drake May is very consistent in fantasy because that team struggles to run the ball as well, and he's playing great football right now. Bo Nix in 4. This one is a little risky for sure because Bo Nix is all over the place. I mean, if you take out the fourth quarter, he was abysmal against the Giants. But this is the Dallas Cowboys, man. It's at home in Denver. That matchup opportunity versus one of the worst defenses, if not the worst, in the NFL is fantastic. I don't care if it's risky. I'm going to play Bo Nix in a lot of situations this week. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got Jalen Hurts at number 5 and Baker at 6. And Jalen Hurts, the reason he's not in tier 1 is just because I can't get it out of my head what I saw the Giants do versus the Philadelphia Eagles. They neutralized them. And I get it. It was a short week, and this one is in Philadelphia. I think the Philadelphia Eagles will win this game. But I do think that it was definitely in his head that day playing the Giants. And he looked bad throwing the ball. And he's not running the ball this year like he used to. He's been very, very conservative with his legs. He usually only gets in a rushing touchdown if he gets the tush push. That's the only time they have him run the ball this year, really. So I think I worry about Jalen Hurts from a rushing standpoint. He needs to really throw, but he's been doing pretty well when he's been tasked to do so. So we'll see about this one this week. I do think there's a chance that Philly jumps out to an early lead against the Giants, and it becomes a little bit less relevant for him to have to throw a bunch. Baker Mayfield, though, at number 6 at New Orleans, banged up for sure, along with the rest of the team, and particularly the offensive side of the ball is very banged up. But this guy has been really good in NFL terms, and in fantasy terms, pretty good as well. New Orleans is a get-right week for them. The only disadvantage they have, aside from traveling in this game, is it's off a short week on Monday night. So I do think there's potential that it might not go well, which is why he's at 6 and probably not over someone like Jalen. But I do think Baker Mayfield in this position against New Orleans this week, get right week, I think he's still going to be a good option this week. Dak Prescott at 7, Lamar at 8, and Caleb at 9. So people may be asking, why is Dak, the quarterback 2 in the year, this low? He's done well on everybody else, basically. He's actually had 2 dud-ish performances. So I would have to hesitate and say he has not done well against everybody. And this is a brutal matchup. In Denver versus that defense, that's going to be tough, man. They're going to get after Dak, and they might cause a turnover or 2. Now, Dak has played excellent football. I've said this several times this year. If his team was 4-2 or 5-1, he would be in MVP discussions. The only reason they're not is because they're 3-1. But I think that he has been great. I'm not trying to take anything away from Dak. Most other weeks he's going to be higher than this, but this matchup in Denver is not one that sits well with me. Lamar and Caleb playing each other in Baltimore this week. Lamar Jackson in the first week back worries me because he's clearly still not 100%. He was limited in practice in his return on Wednesday, and I expect him to be probably limited for the majority of the week. I think that Lamar is still not fully himself right now, and that definitely is going to limit his upside. So I worry about him a little bit in that first game back, but the reality is in most situations, you're going to play Lamar. And then Caleb Williams at 9. I think the matchup upside is fantastic, but it's kind of been good for the past 2 weeks, and the last week particularly, Caleb wasn't that good. Now, Caleb can still run, and he's still got massive upside with his arm. So I kind of feel like it's going to be a big game from Caleb, but just because of the last couple of weeks and how shaky he's looked, I feel like confidence may be on the line in this one versus Baltimore, and that's a big deal with quarterbacks. Dropping down to our next tier, I've got 2 guys, and I'll explain why when we get into the following tier. Daniel Jones, Justin Herbert at 10 and 11. Daniel Jones taking on the Titans. This one could be out of hand very early, leaving a very short window for Daniel Jones to maximize fantasy upside. But that being said, this offense has been so efficient. I expect him to throw 2 touchdowns in this game. Maybe Daniel Jones has another 30 on the ground. Daniel Jones is going to be fine this week, and I would play him slightly over Herbert. Now, Herbert is in this position to where it feels wrong to rank him this low because Thursday night defenses, again, offer a great opportunity. But I don't love him this week because Minnesota's defense, there's something about it that makes me not want to rank Chargers players too high. Now, I think Herbert will be fine, but he's going to get hit in this game versus an aggressive defense, and he may throw a turnover or 2 tonight. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's a really good play, but it also wouldn't shock me if he's a mid-tier play in this one because his offensive line is still in shambles, and that is a problem for Justin Herbert. Dropping down to our next tier, I didn't feel comfortable having Jackson Dart at the same tier as these guys because I could see a lot more going wrong. Now, I will say this. I've been a big Jackson Dart supporter in fantasy football for weeks now. Like, I'm glad that he's not on most waivers at this point, on one hand, because it shows people are understanding this is real. Like, he just put up about 30 points in fantasy on Denver's defense in Denver. That's an insane thing to do. This week against Philly, there's an opportunity there for him to do well, but I could see a lot of things going wrong because one of the things in Denver that was really fascinating to me all last week leading into that game was the confidence, the momentum, and the energy they had going into that game. There's nothing that will take the air out of your team more than losing like the Giants just lost to the Denver Broncos. That's a problem for me, so I'm lower on Giants options this week. Aaron Rodgers, I've said this a couple times this week. I think he's getting up for this game. I really do. This is an opportunity for him to beat all 32 teams in the NFL at least once. He's going to get up to play. Sunday night game in Pittsburgh. He's got the crowd behind him. He's got all of his players behind him. Mike Tomlin is a great motivational head coach. they're getting up to play in this one. I think he could be a top 3 quarterback this week, but obviously without rushing upside and limited passing yardage, unless he has 4 touchdowns, it's not going to work out for a tremendous week. So I've got him at 13 to kind of minimize and mitigate those risks right there. Jordan Love, same matchup. Again, I think it could be a shootout, so it would be ridiculous for me not to rank Love in the top 15, even though he hasn't been very good in fantasy this year. He's very rarely done well in fantasy, but the irony is he's playing great football. And that's kind of the problem with Love, is that he's playing really good football to the point where they don't feel like they need to make a change. But if this game is a shootout, as I feel it could be, Love will continue to throw, and I think he has really good upside as well. Dropping down to our last 2 guys, Joe Flacco and Marcus Mariota at 15 and 16. I'd play both these guys over other starters like Penix, like Tua, like Spencer Rattler, like CJ Stroud. Joe Flacco in a similar position to Daniel Jones, where he's got a minimized window, I think, to where he has fantasy upside, and they have to worry about throwing the ball. I think if they get out to a hot lead versus the Jets, they will finish them and put them away very early. But it is still the Bengals, and they do still have lots of issues on their own. But coming off a long week back at home, I do think they will be in a minimized window for Joe Flacco to maximize fantasy upside. And Mariota, he's got the rushing upside, which gives him a floor, and also they will be trailing in this game, so he will have to throw the ball plenty. But the matchup versus Kansas City, not exactly one I want to take advantage of. So let me know what you think of the rankings in the comments below, and if you want to see the top 30 running back rankings for this week, click on this video right here.